All right, folks, how are you doing? Welcome to Alexander the Great, Empire of the North, Part 2. Just waiting for Ged to show up, and then we'll get right into the presentation. So, hope you all enjoy. Hello.
All right, your ball bag.
How you doing?
I seen you walking out the room. I came into the studio and you just fucking took your house coat off and then like walked out the room. And I was like,
Sorry.
yeah.
No, sorry, mate. I was
I've been
just got
staring,
a loo.
I've been staring at your Braveheart picture for about 2 minutes.
Well, thanks for holding on. So how you doing?
I'm all right, man. I'm a bit tired today. It's like the first day back at work and back to the old grind there. I mean,
All right. So
so
I was.
that's it's officially the holidays over, the Christmas. I'm glad that in a way, Kev. I need a wee bit routine back again.
I know what you mean. It grows tiresome after a couple of days, doesn't it? It's just like, God, can I fucking get back to work already? This is
Aye,
boring.
aye.
Yeah. Day
The
off is
bairns,
fine, but when
the,
it's
the bairns are doing my heathen.
well, Christmas is for the Waynes, really, innit? I mean, it's for the kids, and you're just like, it's all through them. When you're like 38, 39, 40, 41, it's like whatever, And then New Year, all you think is fucking great. All the shops are shut today, and probably tomorrow as well.
Nah, mate. New Year's Day, the shops were open. I went to go and pick my granny up. She was coming to my house for New Year's dinner, and I went to go and pick her up. I thought, do you know what? My granny might fancy a wee G&T, kind of wee gin and tonic.
Mm.
So I thought I'll chance my luck. I'll see if Sainsbury's is open. I went down to Sainsbury's, and fair enough, it was open. It was open on New Year's Day. I was like, oh, Barry, I'll get my granny some G&T. And Scotland was open as well because my missus was actually wanting like lamb stock cubes.
Mm.
Lamb stock cubes. She has to be awkward there. Like Sainsbury's never had them, Scotland never had them, and this was on New Year's Day. I was going to all these shops, so the shops were open, man. Like they never used to. I know what you mean. Like they never used. Nothing was open back in the day, man. Like for days. Like, but now, like shops are like, nah. It's people still want their fags. People still want booze. We'll just stay open. You know what I mean? And the people that are working for us will get a wee bit extra money.
Yeah. Well, I mind I came home from Edinburgh on New Year's Day, and I got off the bus, and I was thinking, right, I'll just go to Scotland, and it was close. I was like, oh, for fuck's sake! And I just went home, and I was thinking the whole way, what have I got in the fridge? What have I got in the fridge? Fuck, because it closed early, like. But through in Edinburgh, I feel kind of bad for the tourists because a lot of the museums in Edinburgh, I don't know if you know this, a lot of the museums in Edinburgh were closed until today. And some of them were still closed today. And that kind of pissed me off. I'm like, it's the fucking 3rd of January, reopen. Like the Writers' Museum was still closed today. And the John Knox House. I mean, they're not in the top 10, but still, I'm like, come on, you've had your fucking holiday. Get back to work, you lazy. But anyway.
We need a break in for the tourists as well, man. We seem to have them non-stop. Here in the summertime, it's like heaving. The town centre's heaving, Edinburgh. And it sort of dies in a wee bit, but you still got all the students kicking about. You still got loads of people there, and it's like the winter comes on, and everyone comes for the Hogmanay sessions. It's like all these people again. It's like, oh god, man, no over again. It's like we never got a break from, man. It's like I was like, in a way, that's what I kind of liked about the COVID times. It's like like I was driving about the roads, and it was like 28 weeks later. You know what I mean? 28 days later, it did. Yeah. I was like, yes, this would be ideal. The world being like this.
Well, in a way, but it would wait. The novelty would wear off pretty quick, I think. To be honest,
Nah.
I know what you mean, though. I mean, too many people around, it just becomes annoying. Like, get away, And there's folk taking pictures all the time, and it's come on, move it away, folks standing in the door. That's the one thing that really annoys me is when folks stand in the doorways. It's like, see, this is a fucking door. But anyway, that's kind of a minor.
I hate when you're walking down Princes Street or you're walking down like the High Street and you've got this old American couple or old German couple or something, the old fogies, like dottering a bit in front of you, and they just stop. It's just like, stop, like, and you're like, fuck, stupid old cunts.
Clattering into them.
It's like they just stop and go, oh, oh, blah, 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 blah.
Aye, well, they're on the holidays.
Fucking hell, man. Just keep
Listen, man,
walking.
it's not our job to tell them that Santa doesn't exist. You know what I mean?
Ken, but like gradually put on the brakes, Ken. Then he just fucking slammed the emergency stop. Ken, it's like, Jesus.
Clattering
Ken,
into the back.
it's like they just stopped, Ken, like that sudden, Ken, like instead of just slowly, gradually, like, going, oh wait a minute, it's like, Ken, it's just. But like.
The bit that annoys me is when they suddenly go diagonal. They'll be walking straight and then they walk diagonal and it's right in front of you. And you've got to move the other way. All right, okay, I'll go around you, and then you move the other way.
Ken, what I hate on the high street when you're driving up the high street is these pedestrian crossings, right? And you're driving up with a van or something up the high street, pedestrian crossings all the way over, and you get the tourists that walk over, stand next to the pedestrian crossing and go, So you slow down to let them like cross over because you have to, kind of, it's pedestrian crossing. They're just like standing there. And then you just walk down the street. Fucking, you're just standing at the pedestrian crossing, like just look at something, man. Just fucking hell, man. Oh, but like I said, man, like when they fade away a wee bit, I'm like,
Well, for a lot of folk, Edinburgh's Harry Potter land. It's fantasy land. You know what I mean? It's like something out of a dream or something out of a movie. Fair enough. You know, I can understand that perspective. You know, it is what it is. You know, you have to
the novelty runs out very quickly though with Edinburgh, kind of like the whole Fantasyland stuff.
Yeah, it does. But if you're there for a couple of days, you know what I mean. The way I see it, it's not our job to burst the bubble. You know what I mean. Let people just enjoy it. The one thing, another thing that annoys me, St. Giles Cathedral is closed until like the 6th or the 7th, and why? Why is it closed? Let people go in there because
they'll be on the same holidays as like the schools. Kind of like the schools go back like next week or something. Kind of like, and this is probably when all the churches go back. This is probably when all the teachers go back. And they'll have their own wee 2-week break. Where the workers, like the labourers, the workmen, again, they get like a week or something, and we're back. We're back to the grind. Like, and the people that work in like the shops, kind of like Scotland and Sainsbury's and stuff like that, they're working non-stop. You know what I mean? So just some people are got more holidays than others, and I think the clergy and teachers and all that, they get loads of holidays, man. They take advantage of it.
Parliament is to go back till the 6th or the 7th. Well, no, it is. Well, actually, that's slightly incorrect. It's not open till the 6th or the 7th. I think Parliament already is back, but they didn't allow the visitors in until the 6th or the 7th. But then again, I can't imagine there's a whole lot of people who are overly enthusiastic about going into the Parliament. But you know, St. Giles, you know, it'd be nice if people could go in there because, to my mind, St. Giles is one of the real highlights of Edinburgh. You know, aside from like the palace and the castle and all that sort of thing. But I don't know. I've got a particular fondness for St. Giles. But anyhow, enough kind of ranting and raving. Let's get right into it here. Unless there's anything else that you want to go over first.
Nah, man, that's cool. Just let's look at your slides.
Hey, bother. So this is Alexander the Great, Empire of the North, Part 2, True Human History with Ged Skeptic Media.
Oh, I've got a fucking subtitle.
I gave it to you last time, I know.
I've never noticed.
It was in Part 1 as well.
Sorry, man, I didn't even notice.
Sorry. So anyway, copyright disclaimer under Section 107 of the Copyright Act, blah, blah, blah. Allowance is made for fair use for criticism, comment, news reporting. This is what this is: teaching, scholarship, and research. Fair use is permitted, and so on and so forth. So this is for research purposes and scholarship purposes. So it is covered under fair use. And, you know, that is the reason why we're doing it. So again, we're going into The Great Deception by Collins Beaumont. And I, like I was saying when I emailed you earlier on, I intend to really go into this book quite a lot. Not to the point it's like just, oh, hang on. Sorry, wrong button. Not to the point of like just read through the chapters, you know, but choosing like specific chapters and pinpointing certain things. The only difficulty is like finding the order to do it in, kind of thing. And just having the time to put it all together, you know, put the presentations. I think the visuals help, like having the images on one side and the text on the other side, because it puts it into context. And I think having the visuals really does help a lot, kind of thing. And it is time consuming, and finding the time to do it, you know, when you're working and all the rest. But you know, I do have all this kind of plan lined up. Like I say, one of the appendices, the Damascus connection with Cirencester, Antioch and Lincoln and all this, and then moving into the big one, which is going to be Odin's Thunder. but it's kind of like that gradual build. That's what I'm aiming for. It's just to gradually build up to it, not to go into it right away, because then you're hitting people with too much information too quickly. Do you know what I mean? It's just too much. I think it needs to be like a slow build, if you get what I mean.
Yep.
Cool. So starting off here is various embassies invoking his favorite meaning, Alexander the Great, from part 1. So all we know from the vestige of its history, when it says its history, it means Babylon's history at this time, is that it. And by the way, if you're watching this, go back and watch part 1 first. Don't just go into this part straight away. Go into part 1 and watch that one first, then come back to this one. But anyway, is that Babylon, that is, it had a harbour with ships and shipbuilding in the yards, very unaccountable as relating to the alleged Babylon in Iraq. And I covered that in part 1. When you saw the pictures, the images, like I say, the visuals, you saw the images of the ruins of what they think is Babylon in Iraq, and they're not even sure about it. Then you compare it to York, in the north of England. It makes a lot more sense for York to actually be Babylon when you bear this in mind. One curious piece of information has come down to us, giving the names of various emissaries sent to Alexander when at Babylon to invoke his favour. They were European Scythians, meaning the Scots from the Perth area, Celtic and Iberian tribes, the Cimmerians, Ethiopia, meaning Mull, where you were a few weeks ago, Carthage, meaning Waterford, in southern Ireland, Libya, the Leinster region of Ireland, which is a huge section of Ireland, by the way, in the kind of eastern part of Ireland, Brutai, Alaba or Albania, Stirling and southwest Scotland, Lucania, branch of the Brutai, how do you say this? Tarhini, Lancashire, Delphi, Ben Croken, Argyll, Ellis, Lismore, Island, mouth of Lachlan, Corinth, Crenan, head of Cantyre, Argyll, and Epidaurus, South Argyll. Any thoughts on that?
So, this is Beaumont's writing here.
Yeah. This is taken straight from The Great Deception. It's
Yeah.
copied and pasted. They haven't changed a word.
So, like we were saying in the first part, that he seems to squeeze all these massive countries into into like a few hundred miles.
Yeah.
We've all got different stuff here again, like Egypt, Babylon. Obviously, Jerusalem is going to be Edinburgh, and
Yep.
it's just strange how he's got all these places in Britain and Ireland. And
Yeah.
by the way, I checked up Helensburgh.
Yeah.
Remember from the first part we were talking about Helensburgh, and I said, what if the place is named after like a woman that got chucked in the ocean or something like that? And by the way, I was onto something. I went to check it. Helensburgh hasn't always been called Helensburgh. It was Sir James Colquhoun bought Helensburgh. He kind of developed the place. He was for the clan Colquhoun of Luss, bought the land which was to become Helensburgh. At that time, it was known by such names as Malig, Millig, or Milligs. So Helensburgh, the area was called Millig, or Milligs. When James Colquhoun bought the area, he renamed it Helensburgh after his wife Helen Colquhoun. Aye, but he named it after her, and that was in like the 1700 17. Well, he died in 1786, so in 1752, Sir James Colquhoun, chief of the clan Colquhoun of Luss, bought the land, which was to become Helensburgh. So this connection with like Helensburgh, it's just making it like it's kind of childish, and it's like just because a certain place begins with a certain beginning, it doesn't mean that it automatically connects them, the two places.
That's true.
And to be honest with you, the older name of Malig or Millig or Milligs, that's probably more interesting to research into.
And it probably is. I'm trying to think. Yeah, Malig.
It's like spelled Malig or Millig or Millig's, Milligs. So there you go. But so that's just that one place. Kind of, if you look into maybe a lot of these places, they probably weren't called. And I'm just giving you one example of Helensburgh
Oh
and
yeah.
so getting that connection. But he could be making connections here all over the place that didn't exist really. You know what I mean? It's
Mm. Oh, absolutely. I mean, the thing with Beaumont is that he seems to just the two paths that he seems to go down is through the phonetic connections, like noticing that place names are similar to something that you read in the Bible and just kind of running with it. That's the one pathway that he tends to go down, and the second pathway tends to be the geography and the topography, like the distance between places. It seems to be what he latches onto, and he pays a lot of close attention to place names. Like, it's got the first three letters of this, so it must be connected to that. And you got
yeah.
to be thinking, this guy really, did his homework for years and years and years, connecting the place names and just noticing little things like the phonetic connections, like the first three or four letters are the same, but if you swap the vowels around, it kind of slots in. I mean, the thing with Beaumont is it's so, what's the word for it? It's incomplete, I would say is the word. It's like you kind of get the feeling that he's onto something, but it's never followed through very thoroughly sometimes. It's just latching on to the name sounds similar to something that was in Isaiah or Deuteronomy or Numbers. And then just from there, it's just like he's made the connection, which could be genius or it could be madness or it could just be that he's reaching. You
But
have to make up your own
he
mind on it.
disregards a lot of stuff as well. Like
Yeah.
just like how we looked up at that Helensburgh and or whatever places, they might not be as old as what he thinks they are. And now we've got the internet and all that, and we can search all this stuff. But maybe he thought the people reading these books would be a bit more ignorant to all this stuff.
Well, to be fair, the Helensburgh thing was me. That
Oh,
wasn't
was that
him.
you? All right,
Yeah.
all right,
We
fair
can't blame
enough.
Beaumont on that.
At least you took
You know,
on the chin. At least
that
you
that
took
was
on the
me.
chin.
That was me. Because I'm a rank amateur by comparison. So we kind of blame Beaumont for that one. That was purely me. And that was just me speculating when we were going through it. So yeah, I didn't think there was really a Helensburgh Alexandria connection, apart from the fact that there's a town called Alexandria nearby. But that doesn't really prove anything. So yeah, that's not Beaumont's fault. That's my fault.
But because he makes grasps a wee bit, that
Yeah.
in turn makes you feel like that you should be grasping the same kind of way, like looking for first letters and place names.
Yeah.
Oh, that could be this place, or and like I said, I think some of his stuff. I'm not totally shitting on it or that. I just think some of it is well, especially this stuff. I thought his other book, Britain: The Key to World History, was a bit better. It didn't spread as
Mhm.
far. It kept. It was more. It was a more rounded sort of work, like more complete.
Yeah.
I feel like this. I don't know. When I read these slides, I feel like it's not even the same writer. To be honest with you, like I said that in the first part, like
Yeah.
it feels like a different. Maybe AI done it for them. Maybe AI done this.
Well, this was back in the 1950s, so I very much doubt it. But I know what you
No, it
mean.
was republished though. Was it not one of these books that was kind of lost in his attic and then
Yeah,
republished in the fucking 2000s or something or
2016, I
90s,
believe it was.
2016.
2016. Yeah,
It re-emerged the darkness. Like apparently his
yeah.
writings, like and they've put it all together. But how do you know? Again, that could be just he's
And I
maybe had a
noticed,
few pages and they've just filled all the blanks. I don't know. Again.
I noticed actually when I was putting some of the presentations together for the Damascus Cirencester presentation, there was a few spelling mistakes, but I just copied and pasted it, kind of thing. And I didn't notice it when I was reading the book, but I noticed it when I was putting it into the slide. That he's made grammar errors or whoever has gone through all that has not really edited it properly. But
But like I said,
yeah,
he's got to disregard all this other stuff. Again, like Carthage, right? Come on, like Carthage.
hmm
If you go over it, like North Africa, like you can find like ruins of Carthaginian, like the old Carthaginian Empire and stuff like that. Again, like there is apparently evidence for that in
hmm
North Africa. And I think it was Romans that destroyed them eventually, like totally destroyed them. But
Yeah, the Punic Wars, there was 3. And that was the making of Rome, because for 2/3 of that war, the Romans were losing.
yeah,
And that's what made the empire.
see,
There's lots of lessons to be taken from the Roman Republic,
I think
because
that's
they actually lost most of their wars. Sorry, go
I,
ahead.
th- I was going to say, I think a lot of these things do kind of have happened, kind of like the Romans fighting with the Carthaginians and stuff like that. So in a way, I feel like he's just disregarded all of the like the Mediterranean, kind of whole of Europe as well. Kind of, it's like I th- I think certain things in history maybe never happened the way they did, and at certain places they did. But he seems to gobble everything up like a big
Mhm.
greedy kind of. It's like, I'm taking all your cultures. Syria, I'll take a bit of Syria, Mesopotamia, I'll take a bit of Greece, just put them all in Britain and scatter them around and squash them into this little box. And it's like, no way, man.
Yeah.
No way,
And
man.
to be perfectly fair, I could see how people would have a big problem with it,
What about
because
languages? What about the languages? Like, just think about where these can. So, what you try to say? Like, the Carthaginians had an Irish accent, or were they fucking Vikings, or what?
I actually covered that in Mars, Atlantis, and the Hollow Earth 6.1, the last one I did on that one. With David Icke in his books, I think it was the biggest, no, it wasn't the biggest secret, sorry, it was Children of the Matrix, I believe it was, 6.1 was based on. But he actually talks about there's connections between like Ireland and North Africa, like the
It
Basque
was slavery.
tribes, not the Basques.
It was called the
No, 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 it
slave
wasn't the
trade.
Basques. Sorry, the Berbers. The
Ah,
Berbers. The Berber language was kind of similar to Gaelic, and there's connections
well,
between
well,
Cymry, which is Welsh, and Hebrew, and all this sort of thing. David Icke
look,
talks about this very extensively.
looking at the Berber slave trade and how even right up to the 1800s, these Berber ships were
Mhm,
kidnapping like farmers for Ireland and that. They were just kidnapping Irish and taking them
mhm.
back to North Africa.
I didn't know about
So,
that at
the,
all.
this is where you get this is a thing. People didn't like to swallow their pride and think that maybe the reason why there's a certain maybe your race somewhere else wasn't it because you
Mhm,
conquered all this land and took over and you were the tribes and maybe you were stolen away, maybe you were taken into slavery and planted somewhere else and then became your own population somewhere else because of slavery. But a lot of people didn't want to think that their ancestors that maybe they were taken into slavery, and this is why you can find their genetics some in a far-flung places that look, my genes are the same as in North Africa. We must have conquered the North Africans at some point. Nah, they were taking you into slavery.
never heard of any of that, but none of
oh,
it
the, oh,
comes
the,
as a surprise.
oh, the
None
Berber
of it.
slave trade.
Yeah,
Oh, hear me. You need to look into the Berber slave trade. But I think it was
yeah.
Elizabeth. Was it Elizabeth that eventually, like, she was like, "Nah, fuck this," and sent boats like the navy, like, out to get these guys, like, and end it once and for all. There was little islands around Cornwall and all that. The Berbers were kicking about, and they're just waiting, kidnapping people, taking them away, right up to the 1800s, mate.
Yeah, wasn't there something to do with the second president? What was it? Thomas Hamilton, I think, was it? No, not Thomas Hamilton. What was his name? Thomas Jefferson. That was it. Thomas Jefferson sent the American Navy to deal with all this kind of thing, the Atlantic trades and all this sort of thing. I remember seeing it years ago. It was to do with the late great Christopher Hitchens. If you look into that, he wrote
Mm.
a biography about the second president, Thomas Jefferson, and a lot of things that are not known about him.
Yeah,
It's very
and I
interesting when you look into
does
it.
great. He done a good piece on Mother Teresa as well.
Yeah.
You need to look at Hitchens' piece on Mother Teresa. She's not the saint you think she is. She's a witch,
Oh
man.
yeah.
She's a demon. She
I
just left
remember. Yep.
people to die in these hospitals.
And when he wrote about Bill Clinton, No One Left to Lie to.
hmm
What a title for a book. No One Left to Lie to. And he's got that smug kind of, you know. The thing with David Icke is it's very, very wordy, and it goes on and on and on. So you do have to kind of edit him down quite a lot. David Icke has the opposite problem of Commons Beaumont. Commons Beaumont doesn't say enough. David Icke repeats himself over and over again and won't shut up. So they've got kind of the opposite problems. Where Icke are getting too much information and it repeats. With Beaumont, you're not getting anywhere near enough. So, to each their own. But because, Beaumont doesn't follow it through. But like I said the first time, he was like 80 years old when he wrote this and half blind. That's why it's not nearly as good. Britain, the Key to World History and the Riddle of Prehistoric Britain came out in like 1946 and 1947. The Great Deception came out in 1953. There's like a 6-year gap there, kind of thing. So you can go downhill pretty fast in 6 years. And it sounds like I'm trying to apologize almost for Beaumont or make excuses for him. And fair enough, you can take that point of view. But, like I said the last time, this was like his swan song because he knew he was on the way out. He died very shortly after this. Less than 2 years later, he was gone. So this was like the final kind of throw of the dice, as it were. So you can look at it, from the critical perspective that he didn't go into enough detail, and all these criticisms are valid. But when you put it into context, how good a work could any of us produce when we're 80 years old and half blind? He's left us something to work with.
Yeah.
It's not as good as it could be, but under the circumstances, it probably is.
But just looking at that, again, he's got like North Africa and Ireland. He's got Ethiopia and it's like the Western Isles and Scotland with Mull. Leinster and Libya. That's still Ireland.
Yeah.
And what's Lancashire? What's this Tyrrhene? Is this the Tyrrhenian Sea?
Yeah, apparently, yeah, the Irish Sea. I think so, yeah. And like Delphi, the Oracle of Delphi was Ben Crouchen up in Argyll, which is a power station these days, of all damn things. But we'll get into that when we go further down. Yeah, Corinth, the great city of Corinth.
He's got Ellis. He's got Ellis as Lismore Island. So because it's got Ellis, he connects this Lismore Island. Get what I mean? And it's like, if you probably look into Lismore Island, you probably find that maybe 200 years ago it had a totally different name. Get what I mean?
Yeah.
So
that's where, that's where I'm kind of on the fence with Beaumont a little bit at times. It's like he shows these flashes, these signs of genius, but on the other hand, you kind of feel like he's reaching a bit. It's like, what evidence do you have for this? Is it just because the place name sounds kind of similar, or it's got 3 letters in it that are also in 3 letters over here? But it is what it is.
Yeah.
Shall we move to the next one, or anything else?
I move. No, I think we're done with this one, man. Various embassies. What does that mean? Does that mean?
Oh yeah. So from part 1, these were the embassies who came to Alexander the Great in Babylon just before he died.
All right.
So all the places that are named, all the places that are named and are shown on the map on the right-hand side, this is where they all came from to go to Babylon to pay homage to the great king, to the conqueror, Alexander the Great. So, so the embassies, they all went to him to pay homage to him, and it was from all these different places throughout, apparently, according to Beaumont, to Ireland and Scotland. So when it comes to the European Scythians, this was apparently Perth. So the next few slides, I've kind of put the images of these areas, what they look like. And here you've got Ewan McGregor, who's actually from Crieff, not Perth. It's just outside of Perth, the town of Crieff. But he's got the physical characteristics. That's why I kind of included his image that Beaumont describes as the Macedonians, the cat people, looking very cat-like, with fierce blue or green eyes and kind of like reddish kind of blonde hair. I've heard Ewan McGregor say in interviews that when he was young, he was actually red-haired, and this is how Beaumont describes them. So McGregor's got kind of the old blood, if you follow Beaumont's theory, and you've got him as Obi-Wan and Star Wars, like the greatest Jedi and all this sort of thing. And that ties into ancient Egypt and things like that. So you're thinking, is the casting on purpose here that the greatest Jedi, or one of the greatest, was from this land, the cat people? And, there's all these connections that you can make. You're saying
the Beaumont's stretching there. God, you're worse.
Well, maybe, but
he's casting in Star Wars or something. He's cat genetics.
Yeah, well, the old blood connections with like old Egypt, and according to Beaumont, old Egypt was really in Britain and all the rest of it. And this kind of he's got the physical characteristics, Ewan McGregor, of what Beaumont describes as the Macedonians, which is the blonde hair and the blue eyes kind of thing, and these mighty warriors. And that's one where I was going with the whole Jedi thing. These mighty warriors kind of thing who civilized the world. And of course, you've got in the third one where he
Have
throws
you
the
not
gun
seen the
away,
new Star
so
Wars?
uncivilized and all this.
Have you not seen the new ones? They're no mighty warriors anymore. They're lame. There
Well,
has been. There has been.
I've seen
It's women now taking over.
I've seen clips on YouTube, but that's about it. I never went to see any of the three of them in the cinema, apart from I think maybe I saw The Force
They
Awakens in the
were
cinema.
good, right? People ripped into the ones back in the day, like
Yeah.
the old ones, but those middle ones that were happening in the sort of late '90s, sort of middle '90s, late '90s, like with Ewan McGregor, like the proper, like they were good. Like, see, when you look back on them compared to the new ones, man, oh, they were good. They're
Yeah.
actually quite good. Anyway, man, so you've got a picture of Ewan McGregor to prove what a
Yeah.
European Scythian phenotype is.
Well, no, the point of it was Ewan McGregor is actually the physical personification example of what Beaumont describes as what the Macedonians were like. Blonde hair, blue eyes,
He's
with kind
not
of a
blonde hair.
reddish tint.
He's not blonde hair. He's brown hair.
No, he's getting older. That's dirty blonde. But like I said, he said in interviews when he was younger that he had red hair, and that ties into a whole
Your red hair
Beaumont's
doesn't
theories.
disappear though. It doesn't just go brown.
Well, it's kind of
Like
reddish
my
blonde.
son's always got to have red hair. He's never going to one day wake up and have brown hair. You'll be like, yes. I can't tell him that one day. I can't say, oh son, don't worry. See, when you're older, you'll have brown hair, like you, McGregor.
I was blonde when I was 12. I'm not blonde now, but
No,
I've got the blonde gene.
I know, but I've noticed like some people do, like when they're toddlers or kids can like have blonde hair and then it turns brown. I've had mates like that have had like white hair when they're like bairns, and then when they're teenagers they've got brown hair and dark hair.
Yeah. Well, the point with Ewan McGregor is he is the physical personification of what Beaumont describes as what the Macedonians were like.
I don't know how many times I was up Perth last year.
Yeah.
Must have been up there about 25, 30 times in that area last year. I love that area. Same with Fife. Oh, I like that area too, man.
Well, Perth, just to get a wee bit sidetracked here, Perth during the Scottish Wars of Independence was actually the capital of Scotland, but it was called by a different name. It was St. Johnstown. Hence the name of the football team, St. Johnston, which of course is Ewan McGregor's team. Makes perfect sense. The town of St. John. And you can tie that whole thing in with the Knights of St. John and the Hospitallers who've been in Scotland since about the 12th century before the Crusades. And you can tie all that in.
And maybe that's why he got a part in Star Wars.
I don't think he's part of any of that. He's never talked about it.
But then again, I suppose he wouldn't be able to. Star Wars because he's good with the old sword, kind of like the Templars.
Well,
right. Next slide. Next slide.
All right. Okay. The point I'm making is that sometimes when they cast these films, they pay attention to details like that. But anyway.
Right.
All right. Well, I'm more open-minded on that, or perhaps just more naive. But anyway, so you've got the Celtic and Iberian tribes who are all kind of genetically connected. If you really look into it, the Basque are said to be descended from the same race as the Picts, by the way, descended from the Atlanteans, supposedly. So you've got kind of like a little bit of a darker skin hue in some of them, which I don't really have a problem with because a lot of Scots actually do have darker skin. Slightly darker. It's a shade darker. I've seen it quite a lot, but when you bear in mind that the Basque and the Picts are meant to be connected or the same kind of race, why do so many Scots have dark hair and brown eyes and we have a slightly, darker skin? We're meant to be in the north. How come we're, when I was a youngster, I always used to ask, how come we're not all blonde? How come we're not all red?
Right, here, I've got a wee answer for that, right? So the brown eye is the oldest colour eye. Yeah. The blue eye was a mutation, a bit like the red hair we were just talking about, like red-haired people. That was a mutation, and blue eyes was a mutation as well. And apparently, every blue-eyed person can trace trace the line into one ancestor in Turkey, Anatolia somewhere. And apparently, and this is what I've heard, that the people over there bred blue-eyed people because they were sought after as slaves, kind of like they're preferred, kind of blonde hair and blue-eyed, and they were actually getting bred, which is and apparently see when you go to Turkey and you see the blue eye, it's like it's a symbol for Turkey, the blue eye. Well, it's apparently something to do with the blue-eyed slaves that were, and genetically you can trace it right back to the area. Like mainstream science says this. Like, mate, this is no conspiracy fucking stuff. This is like geneticists feel like academic fucking schools like Yale and shit again, like proper shit. Like this is I'm not just pulling stuff at Mars here. Like apparently this so nothing against people with blue eyes, but you might all apparently come for like one little mutation for slavery kind of thing, and you were kind of bred. There's nothing to be ashamed of. We've all been slaves at some point, like fucking hell. Our ancestors.
You're going to think I'm going a bit off the rails here, I can tell already. But there is the theory when you get into David Icke's works, like The Biggest Secret and The Children of the Matrix. No, I'm not quoting directly from this. It's more implied than outright stated. But there is the theme, the idea that those who have like the blondish hair and the blue eyes have more of the reptilian Nordic genetics, which is extraterrestrial in source and not native to the planet that we're on right now. So actually the people with dark hair and brown eyes have more native Earth ancestry, and those who have the blonde hair and the blue eyes have more extraterrestrial blood, more of the Nordic reptilian lineage. There is that theory as well.
Well, I've got another little fact for you that see people with blue eyes, their eyes aren't actually blue.
Okay.
What their eyes lack is melanin. The reason why we've got brown eyes is because we've got melanin in our eyes. People with blue eyes lack melanin. So just like see when you look out to the ocean and the way light goes into the water makes it look blue.
Okay.
It's refraction. Like the sky's blue because of refraction. The sky isn't actually blue. It's refraction. It's like light being scattered, and that's what your eye picks up, the blue. That's how you see a blue sky. Well, see people with blue eyes. That's exactly the same as that's happening with their eyes.
I see.
Which is pretty freaky, but it's the light scattering in their eyes. That's why my sister's got blue eyes. Well, sometimes she's got blue eyes, sometimes she's got grey eyes, sometimes she's got green eyes. But now I understand why it looked like that. Like, it just depends. It's like the sky. It just depends sometimes how the light's being scattered to how you see it. So apparently there's no like pigment making their eyes blue. There's no pigment or anything. It's lack of melanin. So it's kind of the same as like water.
But that no suggests though that there's maybe an outside influence that's causing that. What I mean by that is extraterrestrial.
I think it's like the same with the red hair. It's like a mutation. It's the same reason why people have got black hair and fuzzy hair for Africa, because it's hot, and so their head they need some kind of like fuzzy kind of hair to keep their heads protected, kind of thing. And with the cold, again the cold, because you didn't need all that melanin because you're getting less sunshine. Melanin is produced because of sunshine. If you're getting lack of it, especially for a long time, you'll stop producing it. So you start getting blonde hair, start getting red hair, start getting blue eyes because of the lack of the sunshine. So it's an environmental thing that makes these things. It's no fuck. I don't want to be a total like. I do. Again, it's not like I don't believe in evolution, but I do believe in mutations and environments can change. Can change species. I do believe that. I do believe a certain environment, if that species doesn't adapt, it will die off, and the ones that do adapt will continue to live. And I do believe that stuff. So obviously, it benefited those people back then to have lighter hair, bluer, kind of like less melanin in their eyes. Maybe produce it somewhere else. I don't know, or use their bodies might do something. There's obviously a mutation, to some degree. So all this reptilian fucking gobbledygook, go and just do some fucking science. Go and look at some biology. Look at some. This isn't just about fucking geography or history. You need to go to biology and shit now, and we're talking science. So this just to say it's a reptilian race and all this pish, it's nah. I've looked too much into like kind anthropology and all these other things like they make us the way we look and all this stuff, and it's like, oh, he'll just say we're a fucking alien race. That's why we've got these funny
No, it's
shaped
not
teeth.
that simple. It's not that simple, like straightforward, like you're just alien, that's why you look like that. It's more like the thing is, when you get into these sources, the Ike sources, what you're saying is that these races, they came from different planets with different climates. So when they're inserting their genetics into ours,
Climates.
sometimes,
It didn't have
yeah, on
climate.
different,
Fucking Mars apparently hardly has an atmosphere. Never mind a climate.
but it
Can
did
I
it
mean, does
one
it
time.
have clouds? Can all this fucking what climate? What are you talking about? Climate?
It did back then, though.
There's fucking no
It,
climate up there, mate.
it did
There's no climate
before
up
the
there, mate.
catastrophes. It did
It's just a
before the
red dot in the
catastrophes.
sky. For all you know, that's just a red
Wasn't
dot in the sky. And everything you
well.
know about Mars is NASA bullshit, SpaceX bullshit, putting little videos on the screen for you to watch. And you go, yeah, like, there's a rover on the fucking moon
No,
or on
I've got
Mars or
loads of
whatever.
books over
That's
there.
bullshit. That's
I'll get
bullshit.
to
Mars is
Mars
bullshit.
eventually.
Mars is bullshit. It's just a red dot in the
I've got
sky.
loads
It's
of
just
books
a
over
red dot
there.
in the sky.
I'll get to it eventually. It will take me a long time, but I
It's
will get to
just
that
a
eventually.
red dot in the sky. That's all.
Anyway,
Nothing
okay,
more,
we're
nothing
getting.
less.
All right. Well, I will get to that eventually. That'll probably be months away, 6 months to a year from now. But I will get back to Mars anyway. So the point here.
I wish more people would comment on these kind of wee back and forths. I can say,
Well,
do you know
I
what,
would
Jed's
say,
right.
well,
That guy should shut up.
I'm sure they have thought it more than once, because I tend to gravitate more towards the radical theories that are a bit more off the rails. But anyway, so the point with the presentation slide here is that the Celtic and Iberian tribes, they were all paying homage to Alexander, and this is apparently more what they look like than what you see in mainstream history. They were actually the Northern European tribes than the Mediterranean style. That's the point with the images that I put in there.
So the guys on the right, I take it they never had beards back then. Can they not grow beards or that?
I
Or
know that's a bit
mustaches?
weird, isn't it? Why are they all clean shaven? That's a bit strange. But aye, and also on the left as well. I guess it wasn't the fashion, but anyway.
Oh well,
So
you've got the native Indian there looking all like grizzled and shit. He's got his 5 o'clock
well,
shadow, and that's another
I
thing. You
did
didn't
say that
see
right at the
Native
beginning when we
American.
got onto this.
You'll never see a Native American with a beard, man.
Well,
It's just no one
apparently,
of these things.
when you get into the Mars, Atlantis, and the Hollow Earth presentations, the people of Lemuria and Atlantis were the Native Americans before they had that infusion of alien blood, which created what we know as the white race. Originally, they were dark skinned. They were the Native Americans. Those were actually the Lemurians and the Atlanteans. The Native Americans were actually the original Atlanteans and Lemurians before the infusion of the alien blood, which created what we think of as white people today. That's what David Icke was getting to. And that's what I was covering in the Mars, Atlantis, and the Hollow Earth presentations. But that's subject for another time. That's another presentation. But like I was saying right at the beginning when we went onto this slide, a lot of Scots do have dark hair and brown eyes. And they do sometimes have a slightly darker hue to their skin. A lot of Scots do have Mediterranean and Middle Eastern ancestry. About 1 in 5, apparently, Scots have lineage that goes back to the Middle East. And that's why I purposefully included that image that you see on the left-hand side. A lot of the Celtic and Iberian tribes, a lot of them, also when Scotland was Jewish talks about this, a lot of the Scottish tribes were descended from Iberia, from Portugal and Spain. They had that Sephardic, Jewish and Moorish lineage, which means they had darker skin. Hence, like the Black Douglas. Why was it called the Black Douglas? Because he was black. It was called the Black Douglas because he was black. Simple as that.
No, he wasn't.
Well, that was possibly a reason.
Why was it? Did you know there was a red Douglas?
Yeah, because it's a mixture of lineage. It's a mixture of northern and Mediterranean
was he a red
blood.
Indian? Was he a red skin Indian then?
No, what I'm saying is a mixture of lineage.
No, it's because he had hair. He had red hair and black. Was it because he had black hair, black beard, black eyebrows? Okay, and that was what was black back then.
Okay,
It didn't mean black face.
Well, this black hair, did it come from the north?
And they probably wouldn't have called people black back then. Like, as in, like, if you're calling a person from Africa, back then they probably wouldn't have called them black.
No, it just meant a darker hue of skin. It just meant they had slightly darker skin.
The Black Douglas, I know, but the Black Douglas that doesn't mean black man. No way.
Okay.
No way.
Well, what does it mean?
It means black hair, black beard, black dark appearance.
dark appearance. That's exactly what was driving that.
No, you were leaning as like as a
Oh,
black guy. You're like
no,
as a
I
black guy.
mean, not strictly speaking black as in strictly from the continent of Africa. I meant he had the
And
Mediterranean
like I said, there was a red
hue.
Douglas in it. He never had red
Yeah.
skin, right?
I meant more like olive skins, like Mediterranean, like Greek or Spanish or Italian. I don't mean like black as in African. I meant black as in compared to other people from the north. By comparison, like blonde-haired, blue-eyed people who are pale white, they would call them black because they had darker skin. That didn't mean that they were black by the modern
But he never had
definition. It meant
darker
they were
skin.
slightly
He never
darker.
had darker skin. It was his black beard and his black hair.
Okay.
Because that's quite rare and kind of like especially back then. And most people have got auburn brown hair. Kind of you got black hair, a black beard.
Well, they were
Ken.
coming from the Sephardic families from Spain in Iberia
Ah.
in the 1200s and 1300s during the time of the Spanish
Well,
Inquisition.
the
All these
Douglases
tribes
reckon
from Portugal and Spain, they came to Scotland.
the Douglas family reckon they came over for like the other side, kind of like Saxony. And
Yeah, but where did they come from before that? That's what I'm
did we
saying.
all come from before that?
The Middle East, that's what I'm saying.
We're all meant to have come from Africa, but we're not all looking African, are we?
Well, all these traits get all mixed in. It's an admixture of different traits. Sometimes it comes out in one generation in certain families. Sometimes it comes out in the next generation. When Scotland was Jewish, talks a lot about that. Like there was clans. I can't remember off the top of my head what it was called. Like the black and the reds, because half the children had red hair and blue eyes, and the other half had dark hair and brown eyes. It was like the Caldwells or something like that. Or I don't think it was the Campbells. I think it was the Caldwells. I'm going off memory though, so I might be wrong. But yeah, it's this admixture of different groups. Different lineages from all over, from the north and from the Mediterranean and from North Africa and the Middle East, all mixed in. It's all different groups. That's the point I was getting at. But shall we move to the next one?
Aye.
Okay, so Ethiopia. Well, you were there not too long ago. According to
I was
Beaumont.
on that little island just at the bottom left there.
That's right.
Iona. And see the ferry from Mull to Iona is so quick, man. It's like 5 minutes. It's crazy.
Oh, straight across. Yep.
Oh, it's good.
Yep. So
right.
this
So
was,
so what do we take for this then? Ethiopia and Mull.
nothing really. It's just showing the geography, what
Where
Mull
does
looks
he
like
get
on the right.
Where does he get the connections? Does he get it through etymology, through the name, or does he get it through the history of the area, or where does he come to this conclusion that Mull is Ethiopia, and how does this?
Well, I'm sure it's covered a lot in Britain, the Key to World History. I'm sure he wrote about it in that. I'm just covering it briefly here, in this presentation, because, just introducing the idea that according to him, Ethiopia and Mull were the same thing. But if you go into the Great Deception, I don't think he covers it so much in that one. I think it's more in the previous volumes, because like I say, the Great Deception was more like the summary of what came before the Britain books, Britain, the Key to World History, and the Riddle of Prehistoric Britain. And that's what I mean when I refer to the Britain books, those two. He talks about it in those two books, and in this book, he just kind of rounds it off and doesn't really go into as much detail. So for the explanation for that, you'd have to go back into the Britain books, the Riddle of Prehistoric Britain and Britain, the Key to World History. And by the way, by word of warning, by the way, for anyone who reads those books, you do have to kind of sift through Beaumont's bigotry, quite frankly, because he can say some things, but which by modern standards are pretty fucking racist. I'm just giving you a word of warning, by the way. If you read those books, expect that. I have warned you. That doesn't mean that all of his work should be thrown out. This was kind of a standard opinion at the time, but if you are of a different race or ethnicity, it can be a little bit of a difficult read. I'm just giving you a heads up on that.
Because he takes your culture and vampires it.
Oh, that's one way of looking at it, I suppose. It's certainly not a contemporary. It's not a modern.
You'll not enjoy Beaumont if you're Greek, if you're Italian, if you're African, because
you do have to kind of sift through some of the racist shit, to be quite blunt about it. But that doesn't mean that everything should be thrown out. But you do have the kind of, like I say, if you're of Mediterranean or African extraction or from the Middle East, you might be offended by some of the things he says. I'm just giving you a heads up on that. You know, but you do have to work through that. People do have their prejudices in life. You know, it's unfortunate, but that was common opinions at the time, back in the 40s, the 50s. Not so much these days, but it is what it is. You know, what can you do about it?
On Mill, I was glamping in a pod right opposite. Is it Ben More? But these these mountains, like, it was a double peak, and I swear to God, man, if you look at Ben More on like Google Earth, it's almost like a three-sided pyramid, man.
Mhm.
At the peak it, and where at my angle, I could see like just one of the sides. It was just like shadow, kind of like, oh, it looks so so pyramidal, man, and it even looked like it was like a capstone, because it looked like there was a line underneath it. It looked like it'd been plopped on top of like the hills. Kind of, oh man,
Yeah.
swear to God, when I need to look back in some of the photos I took of that hill and zoom up to it, because Ben More, that's what it's called. It was
Yep.
quite a
That's
nice
covered.
mountain.
It's covered in the Britain books. Britain, the Key to World History, I think, is the one that covers that. Ben Moore. It's written about quite extensively. I remember reading it. I don't. I'm not sure if he covered it in Written the Key to World History. Sorry, the Riddle of Prehistoric Britain is what I mean to say. Excuse me. But yeah, in the Britain books, Written the Key to World History and the Riddle of Prehistoric Britain, he does refer to them all, like I say, and he does refer to Ben Moore as being. It's like, I'm going off memory, but if I remember right, it kind of hints that the pyramids are based on Ben Moore
See
in a
where
sense.
Coolanig is,
Yeah.
at the bottom of the mill. You see at the right at the bottom of the mill, you've got Bunnesson and then Coolanig. Well, where that little dot Coolanig is, that's where I was staying.
Mm.
And Ben Moore's sort of over the water, sort of opposite. But
Yeah.
aye,
Right
what an
across from
amazing!
it. Yeah.
Oh, what an amazing! Do you know what? I wish I spent more time there. I wish I had a week just to explore the place, and
Oh yeah.
maybe even
I know what you
myself,
mean.
because I can cover more ground myself. Okay, when I've got, again, it was nice having my missus, but it was brilliant to get away. Actually, me and my missus, it was nice, but it'd be nice to explore the place, just like walking and camping, again, like sort of, and just try to find all the little ruins. And oh, I would love that, man. Just for like a
Yeah.
week or something, just spend the whole week on Mill, exploring every nook and cranny.
Oh, me too. I remember when I was up there years ago, just on the coach and just flying through the glen. I'm
Hmm.
thinking, man, I'd love to spend more time here. I remember at one time the population of Mull used to be as high as about 10,000, but now it's about 3,000. So it's been depopulated over the years. Just people moving out. During the time of the British Empire, a lot of the people who lived in that area joined up and served in the forces because there was nothing else to do, literally nothing else. Just out of sheer boredom, joined the army to go serve the empire and all this sort of thing. But yeah, that area, I think, there's that untapped reservoir in the Highlands of Scotland, and this is one of the things I really do appreciate about Beaumont and other writers like David Allen Ritchie with We the Scythians going into Barry Dunford as well, the Holy Land of Scotland, going into the sacredness of these areas. Even David Icke talking about the Highlands of Scotland. This there's something very special. This haunted land, which is severely depopulated. 90% of the population in Scotland live between Edinburgh and Glasgow. There's hardly anyone, comparatively speaking, up in the Highlands. But there is such a long history. And if Beaumont is right and other writers are right about even Ellie Waddell, for example, talking about the Highlands of Scotland being the homeland of the Phoenicians and all this sort of thing,
Well,
and
the last straw for the Highlands was the Jacobite Revolution, and
yeah,
after they lost that, they went on a mission to expel all these Highland clans, and this is where they went to the New World. They went over
yep,
to
off
America
the
and
cliff.
Canada, and they
Yeah,
moved away.
yeah,
So
that was when that's what killed the Highland culture, stone dead.
uh,
They just went straight off the cliff after that. They outlawed the tartans. It used to be the death penalty to wear a tartan.
mhm,
The way the kill, you could get thrown in the toll booth for 20 years for speaking Gaelic.
yeah,
That's probably an understatement. Actually, it's
that's
probably worse than that.
that's genocide, Kim, because you're trying to exterminate a culture. You know what I mean?
Yep.
On a massive scale. Because I've said it before as well. When you go down the borders, you can see there were so many. You could see there was like kind of ecosystem. Can people lived here? Can you see buildings, ruins? And you wonder where everybody is now? And it's like, why is Scotland? All the developed countries in the world, why have we only got 5 million people in it? It just it's like we've been kept low. Can this population has been kept low? And surely all the
We
countries
have, Jed, yeah.
in the Western Europe known world, can we have? Why is there only 5 million people? Can it's crazy.
Well, yeah, so that
So much
question's
land there.
fairly,
It's not like people can't live here.
yeah.
Can it's so much land out there.
The answer to that's fairly straightforward. We rebelled 3 times and we almost won. So they weren't going to allow us to keep our culture after that. The Hanoverians, I mean. The Jacobites, under Bonnie Prince Charlie, they got as far as Derby, which is just outside London. They almost won. They're not going to let us, continue after that. They're going to let us continue until there's a 4th, a 5th rebellion, a 6th rebellion, a 7th rebellion. They crushed us essentially because they were like, fucking hell, these people are never going to give up unless we destroy their culture and destroy their way of life and crush them. They're going to keep coming back and back and back and back again and again and again. That's the reason why. They destroyed us because they felt that they had to, because we're just going to keep rebelling. We're never going to accept them. I'm not saying, not trying to sound like a Hanoverian sympathizer, but, at the same time, it was 3 rebellions, the 1690 rebellion, the 1715, and the 1745. It's like, from their point of view, if we don't crush them, they're just going to keep trying. That's why. But also going further back than that, it was the Great Catastrophe, which destroyed particularly the west of Scotland, is what Beaumont was getting at. He even talks about some of the passages I was reading today, because I was reading through all of this in preparation for the future presentations I'm working on at the moment. The western part particularly was devastated by the twin comets that Beaumont talks about. When I get into Odin's Thunder, the War on the West, the twin comets that was the Great Catastrophe destroyed the Highlands of Scotland. So there was still a remnant of the former power there of Atlantis, which Britain is part of in Ireland, according to Beaumont, and I believe him. I think it was part of Atlantis, or the place where the remnants of Atlantis went to, but a lot of that power was already destroyed beforehand. And it was kind of like a very, very slow decline until the Jacobite Wars. And then when those wrapped up, that was like the last pop, as it were. That was the last blaze of glory of that old Macedonian, Caledonian culture. And after that, it was just killed by the Hanoverians because we just refused to obey and refused to bow down. And you can take pride in that. It's a romantic defeat. But from their perspective, what the fuck else were they supposed to do? We just kept rebelling. What do you think?
Aye, man. Aye, it's a sad state of affairs. These places should be more populated, man.
They should be, but the thing is, the lands were ruined thousands of years ago during the Great Catastrophe. That's what Beaumont's getting at in the first place.
And the Great Catastrophe, I've got kind of 2 theories on that. First theory is probably, it's no my own theory, obviously. It's like Beaumont obviously thinks it, but it's not just Beaumont that thinks there was a large comet. I think even scientists are starting to realise maybe maybe even during the Roman occupation in Britain, there was a big comet. But I'm starting to now lean towards, now I'm looking at the science of a CME, kind of like a coronal mass ejection, the big flares for the sun.
Yeah, that's a good point.
And you see the Northern Lights, and this idea there's a dragon in the sky, and this dragon's been connected to this comet a lot of the time. And I was thinking that, like, these CMEs, one of the after effects of a CME, because when it's Earth facing, when a CME hits the Earth's magnetosphere, it sort of bends around it, and you see the green. You see this is like the solar wind. Can you see the green energy coming out? And if it was a bad one, and these are hear me, these are connected to earthquakes, volcanoes, shit like that. See, when one hits on Earth, we get northern lights. The worst we can really get on Earth is maybe like radios or satellites taken down because of electromagnetic interference. But what it can do is sort of it moves the plates of the Earth. It gives the Earth, this magnetosphere wobbles, and in turn the Earth has a little we'll not feel it. We're so small, but the Earth will have a little wobble, and you get volcanoes, you get fucking. And funnily enough, about a week ago, I follow a channel that watches the sun and the CMEs, and one went off about a week ago, and about 2 days later, you had that earthquake in Japan. It just happened recently, a 7.5.
I would say reads The Riddle of the Earth by Thomas Beaumont, reads The Mysterious Comet. He talks about all this, and he covers all of it. And I've covered it on my channel as well, up to a point with the Riddle of the Earth. I've actually made videos about that, and I got very little views, but it talks about all this, you know, the relationship of celestial bodies like comets and asteroids and meteors, and you know, the relation of that to earthquakes and hurricanes and natural disasters. Beaumont covered all of this in his early works. Covered it completely. Now, whether you want to believe him or not is another story, but he does have theories on that. You know, I have made videos about it in the past, but I would say definitely get those books, the Riddle of the Earth and the Mysterious Comet, Jed and everyone who's watching that, because he covers all this, and it's a radical look, a retake on all of this. What actually causes earthquakes and tornadoes and hurricanes in the first place? The so-called natural disasters. And Beaumont's argument is they're not natural, because natural implies that they just occur,
But
you know, just
do you know what
because.
puzzles me, mate? That
Yeah.
I found this connection, and so have other people can found this connection with CMEs, Earth-directed CMEs, and earthquakes and volcanoes. And we can almost predict that there's going to be, because it even shows you with the pressure, what part of the atmosphere is getting hit with the pressure for this CME, and what part of the world's probably got to be affected the most. And it was spot on. It was like it was over the Pacific and all that. That's where the pressure was all going. When it showed you, and then Japan earthquake.
Yeah.
And what puzzles me, like I'll go back to what I'm saying, is that I don't know why the news or the weather say, okay, there's been a CME and it shows that maybe this area is going to be hit. People can get ready, can go somewhere safe, because it takes a couple of days to hit, because the sun's so far away, like it takes so long to hit us, a couple of days or some shit like that before it. So we've got time. We've actually got time to prepare. Like CME, right, guys? CME towards us. It might be hitting our area. Let's get our mirrors down off the walls. Let's get our statues down, or whatever. Again, like you could prepare. You know what I mean?
Well,
but the news, the mainstream stuff doesn't even connect it, and I don't know why. It's one of these things that puzzle me, man.
because we're not that bright
Because
as a species, humanity.
they love
Yeah.
destruction. They love
Yeah.
misery. They love death, destruction, and like earthquakes and all that. They make money at that. Oh, we've got a new appeal. We've got the earthquake appeal. We've got the fucking, you know what I mean? It's like, so.
Well, it also doesn't help that Earth is in a shooting gallery, because there's that big asteroid field between Jupiter and Mars. When that planet was blown up, Tiamat or Lucifer, whatever you want to call it. So that means that there's a constant barrage all the time, constant, like almost daily, almost in a sense, of all these asteroids that are whizzing past our planet all the fucking time. And that is what's causing these so-called natural
And if you're
disasters.
wondering who blew up the planet, it was the space Vikings with their reptilian lasers.
It's a Death Star. No, but I'm being serious though, honestly. If you look into the Riddle of the Earth and you look into the Mysterious Comet, basically Beaumont is saying it's celestial objects like meteors, asteroids, and comets that cause natural disasters. And I think actually I would take it further, and I would say it's the asteroid belt between Mars and Jupiter. All those rocks in that asteroid belt, every once in a while they come whizzing past the planet, and they're causing these things. I would say there's nothing natural about natural disasters. Is how I would put it in a punchline. It's because of all these celestial objects coming and hitting into our planet all the time. The thing is, the Earth is 70% water, at least. It's probably more than that, 75% water. So 75% of all the objects that hit the Earth don't hit the Earth. They hit the water. And that's what's causing hurricanes and tornadoes and shit like that. Like I say, go into the Riddle of the Earth or watch the videos on my channel that I did about it, the Mysterious Comet. It's all explained, because I covered at least I think I covered part of the Mysterious Comet. I covered the Riddle on the Earth on my channel. I'll link it in the description of this video. You go check it out. And that's none of my theories. That's what Beaumont says.
Sorry, I just want to correct you that the surface of the planet is 80%. But see, if you stripped all the water off the surface of the Earth, you'd have a big, massive rock, it's the water, the oceans on our Earth are so thin. compared to the depth
Yep.
and the mass of the Earth. Like the Earth isn't 80% of water. You know what I mean? It's the surface of the Earth.
That's a
is
good
80%.
point. Yep. It's a good correction. Yeah, because they talk about that when I study the hollow Earth, that the surface level is only 40 miles. And then you've got the hollow Earth underneath.
But
I don't know if you believe in that, but
it's funny how you can only go as high really as Mount Everest before you need like breathing equipment. Okay, you need like oxygen and shit like that. Like, and it's the same like with what's that plateau called in the sea? It's like a Mount Everest in the sea, deep. Kind of if you flipped Mount Everest upside down, can it be as deep as like? And it's funny how like the deepest part of the ocean is sort of the height of Mount Everest. Kind of, it's like there seems to be a sort of a line where kind of everything you kind of go past or beyond. Sure. With it being crushed for starters in the sea, and when you go up, you just lose oxygen. So it feels like you are contained in a way. Again, and to this stuff about going to space, that's a lot of shite, man. You can't get past the fucking the radiation belt. There's a big radiation belt that goes around Earth. You get fried. You get fried when you go through that, mate.
Ged, you're asking the wrong question. You're not asking why it's there. You're saying it's there, but you're not asking why it's there.
It's there because of the sun. The sun's radiation. Might remember we're speaking about the magnetosphere and all these. You've got different sort of. You've got the ionosphere. You've got the atmosphere. You've got the ionosphere. And you've got the magnetosphere. And you've got all these things going on.
Keeps it in place. That magnetic belt, the Van Allen belt, the moon locks it into position. The moon's not natural. Shouldn't be there, but it is. Why is it there? See, this is the questions that you have to ask. I'll get into the moon probably in a year from now because I've got so much to cover with Beaumont before I get to that. I wish I had so much more time to cover Beaumont.
I wish you'd just go to the next slide.
Get into the moon. But I'm telling you, the Van Allen belt is not natural. But anyway, that's
but you can't get past them, you get fried.
That's true, but why is it there? You know, you're just saying it's there, and I'm saying why is it there?
Right, so now we're looking at Carthagena.
Yep.
Empire.
Carthage. Yep. Waterford in Ireland, and there's this whole thing that the Romans. Does that ever make sense when you hear that?
We can see Hannibal sitting in Dublin.
No, but seriously, does it make sense? The Romans make all the effort to conquer England, to conquer Wales, to try and conquer Scotland, because they did try a few times, but they just completely ignore Ireland. What the fuck? Why? If I was 9, 10 years old sitting in the primary school classroom, I'd be saying, "Excuse me, miss, why the fuck didn't they try and conquer Ireland? They're right next to it."
I don't think they totally ignored it. I think the Romans were aware of it, and I think they maybe even had a boat go around the top part of it, kind of have a look to see what was happening. I think the Romans didn't obviously invade Ireland or try to conquer the place, but they were well aware of it. And I think
they did.
What was that?
They conquered the south of Ireland. They did conquer Ireland. Well, they conquered part of it. They conquered the south because they conquered Carthage, right? Yeah, they did conquer Carthage. They conquered the south of Ireland because that's what Carthage was, from my point of view. They found Roman remains in the south of Ireland, certain parts of Ireland. They probably found them in the north as well.
That's what I'm saying. The Romans were well aware of Ireland, and maybe a few go over there at some point. But
and by the way, Ireland would be a lot easier to conquer than Scotland because it's a lot flatter and there's not nearly as many hills and mountains. I mean, the Romans are that ass backwards. They try and conquer Scotland, which is full of hills and mountains and impossible to conquer. You have to completely ignore Ireland, which is completely flat and would be a doddle by comparison. Aye, that makes sense. What?
Next slide, mate. This is stupid. This is stupid.
Well, I'm just saying, you know. But anyway, apparently Carthage was Waterford, and I tend to believe it. But anyway, Libya, was Leinster in the what? In the southeast, you know. So these were other tributaries. This might be talking about Alexander the Great, by the way. But anyway, so there were tributaries from Leicester, from the south, east of Ireland, who went to Alexander and Babylon as well. You know, and Alaba or Albania was Stirling. Oh, by the way, we'll get into that. One of the appendices, that's something else I need to get into. I think it's Appendix B in The Great Deception was the Trojan dynasty in Britain. And apparently the Trojans after the Trojan War, they came to Britain and they came to Scotland and they settled in Stirling, that area in the centre of Scotland, because it reminded them, the mountains, the Brendelsbane Mountains, reminded them of Germany. And the reason why they came from Germany, which was Troy, Troy was never in Turkey, it was never in the Middle East, it was actually in Northern Europe, it was in Germany. It was a German civilization. And the reason why they came to Stirling was it reminded them of their homeland. So the people around that area had Germanic ancestry and Germanic blood, according to Beaumont. This is what he's suggesting. And you go to places like Arthur's Seat in Edinburgh, you go to places like Stirling, you find a lot of people of German stock are drawn to these places. Any thoughts on that?
And you think because they're German stock that what they find sort of they really can relate to it, or what is it?
Well, look at the mountains. What do you think of when you think of Germany and you think of the castles in Germany? Big, huge mountains.
When I see the mountains, I just think of big, hairy tits.
Anyway, I'll get to that eventually. Not the tits, but the Trojan dynasty in Britain. I'll go through it. I'll cover the whole Trojan War.
The Germans probably think that way as well. They're the I look, I see big fucking tits.
Well, I'll tell you, when I was in the Shetland Islands years ago, there was a big, huge cruise ship for Germany, 3 times the size of the ship I got heading over there. The Germans love Scotland. They come to Scotland all the time, and there are Scoto-Germanic links. There's loads of, you go up Arthur's Seat, you'll hear a lot of German voices up there, take, for example, just examples in small ways, like Prince Albert, the Prince Consort to Queen Victoria. He was German. Victoria was German as well, by the way. And he loved Balmoral. Why does Balmoral exist? Because it's right in the Highlands. And Holyrood Park was renovated by Prince Albert. He invested a lot of time and money into renovating the park. Why? It's a little slice of home. But it's just, what I'm saying is, the point, I know I'm ranting, but the point is that the evidence manifests itself in small ways. If you're looking, if you're paying attention, it does the clues are always there. The breadcrumbs are always there. But I will get to that. That's in the future. The Trojan dynasty in Britain, about the survivors of the Trojan War coming to Northern Europe, coming to Scotland to settle in this area. But that's one of the theories of Beaumont, and it's again that'll be touched upon when we get into Odin's Thunder as well. That part. But what do you think, or do you want me to just move on to the next slide?
I want to tell you what I think. Big side tits. I moved the next one. It's like one of the psychologists giving the the pictures with a splat of paint. What do you think when you see this?
Right. All right. Okay. Well, again, I'll get into that when we get to the Trojan dynasty in Britain, but that's a ways off because I've got so many other things to cover before that. Okay, so the Bruti, the Isle of Bute, just off the coast of Scotland, which is fairly close to like Argyll and Mull, and there was also the tributaries going to Alexander from this area as well, proof in the coins and things like that of like the kind of connections with the Macedonians, the spear and the shield and all this kind of thing. What you think of as the Greek phalanx. That's why I put the coin in there.
Where was the coin found?
I can't remember. I put this presentation together ages ago. So
was it found on Bute?
If I go back a few,
or is this just a Macedonian coin that you're showing that?
No, that was a Bruti. That was a coin of the Bruti tribe of the Bruti people. Let me go back a few slides to refresh my memory here. What did I say in the? Oh wait, am I going the wrong way?
Aye. Jesus, man, we need to hurry up. There'll be 10 slides left.
It's going the wrong way. There we go. Slide number 4. Lucania, the branch of the Bruti. Sorry about that. Doesn't always work properly. But yeah. Okay, so let's flash forward. Anyway, the point is that the folk for the Isle of Bute, also the Bruti tribe, pay tribute to Alexander. Okay, so Lucania apparently was in the southwest of Scotland, off the Isle of Arran, kind of Ayrshire, Clydesdale, Dumfries, and Galloway. And notice the mounds on the right-hand side. They look a little bit like proto-pyramids, like Silbury Hill.
I just
kind of
think
thing. I just thought that
Madonna.
was interesting.
I just think Madonna.
Madonna. All right. I think we've exhausted the intellectual depths of this slide. On to the next one. But if you get the chance to go to the southwest of Scotland, definitely take it. And also like Galway or Galway. Yeah, there's Tirhini. Okay, the Tirhini from Lancashire in England. That was another tributary for Alexander the Great. Lovely countryside again. Delphi for some. Sorry?
I was just going to say, which is sort of like Yorkshire, eh? Like Lancashire, Yorkshire, and whatever.
Yeah,
Saying.
It's just across from it, across the other side of England, but the same
They
area.
wouldn't like me saying that. They're like rivals, but Lancashire,
Yeah.
Yorkshire, all the same shit. That
Oh,
part of England, northern England.
That's your words, not mine. Okay, so Delphi,
You're
Ben
such a shite
Crockin.
bag, right? What was that? Delphi.
Okay, Delphi in the north of Scotland, I should say. Did I say north of England? North of Scotland. So, like I said, Ben Crockin, that's where the power station is with the dam these days, and you go up across the mountains. And at the top of one of them, you've got Ben Crockin, which, according to Beaumont, was actually the Oracle of Delphi. And nowadays, it's a power station. So, all things in life are self-defining. What was a source of power once before is a source of power once again. Only this time, it's electromagnetic power, whereas before, it was spiritual power. So, in the Crockin mountain range. So this is where you go. Well, where do you go to speak to the gods, right? You go to the top of the mountains to speak to the gods. And it makes more sense to me that Delphi would be right at the top of a mountain range than anywhere else. Though I think actually the official Delphi is as well. But, the idea that you have to go right to the top and that's where you commune with the gods. And if you look at the photo on the top right-hand side, it almost looks like a temple almost was there before. Any thoughts on that?
Well, they did used to build stuff on these hills. It could have been a temple. It could have been a hill fort. It could have been one of these things. They used to like fires to warn. Like it was like that's how the community communicated. Like these fires on top of the hills, but like Lord of the Rings. Kind of, I mean, it's like it was like a long range communication. You'd like a fire. Like here comes the Romans, and someone lights a fire, and the next person lights a fire, and it's like quick communication for men to bear arms, kind of thing. So it could be one of these things. It could be a cairn. Who done the drawing on the left? Who done that?
I have no idea. Just got it off Google, but I thought it was a really good drawing.
Did you?
Because it points out where everything is and the pathway along that you have to take along the range. But yeah, if you're going through that area, that is covered by Beaumont. It is books. I'll cover it another time. But yeah, the whole Oracle of Delphi. I'm sure that was covered in Britain, the Key to World History in the past. So Ellis Lismore Islands off Loch Lynn, which are covered when we talked about Thermopylae before. This whole area to the west. And all these lochs in this area. By the way, there's over 30,000 lochs in Scotland. I probably mentioned that before. But yeah, this idea of Lismore Islands, Loch Lynn, Corinth, which was one of the ancient parts of Greece, apparently was in Scotland. And all these different moors and all these different mountains and hills and things like that. Again, the beautiful landscape on the right-hand side there. These are all the tributaries to Alexander. Nothing to say, or shall I move to the next one?
No, just keep moving, mate. It's kind of just...
Sure. So
this is interesting, mate. I've got something to say about this one.
Okay.
Because I think the original ancient name for this part of the world was Epidinin or something like that. On the old maps, on the old Greek maps, if you look at over in Scotland, especially on the Western Isles, they've got like Epidimon, and it's something to do with horses because there were like there was a lot of horse worship apparently over that side, and that ep word comes from. That's where we get equestrian. That's why you get such a funny word for horses. If you say what's equestrian, like horses, equestrian, but that's where the epi. It comes from something. It's somebody with their questions, but it was horse worship anyway over here, and the Greeks had this place down as Epidie something. Same spelling, E-P-I-D, then something else. It wasn't Epidaurus. It was like Epidie or something. It was something like that. So that's the one I think there's some truth to. You know what I mean? But
Yeah.
he might be getting confused. I don't know. But I don't know if you could show. It was that old map? It was the old. It wasn't Pythagoras. It wasn't. Who was the one that fucking drew it?
The one you showed me last time, or
Aye.
the time before.
No,
The
the
Ptolemy.
last one. Aye, Ptolemy, the map. Aye, the Ptolemaic map.
Yeah.
If you look at the Western Isles, mate, you'll see that Epid. And I think it was a tribe as well, maybe, over in the Western Isles. But that one kind of rings a wee bit of a bell, and even back in ancient Greek times, they apparently this was aware of, they were aware of this Epidaurus, or whatever it is. I think it was spelled different, though.
Interesting.
Well, it's probably more like Dorus, like O-R-U-S.
Yeah.
Epidaurus.
I'll tell you what, though, looking at all these slides makes me want to actually go up to the Highlands.
Aye.
Hopefully it's having the same effect on the audience. You know, when you see all these beautiful pictures here on the right-hand side through all these slides, I'm just thinking, I wish I could just jump in the car in the morning and just drive up there.
But they're hard to get to, man. Like you can get so far up north so quickly compared to when you go west, because of all those mountains, all those locks. You have to go round everything, and you're always going around. You can't get a straight road to the place. So you find yourself driving for like 4 or 5 hours through the Highlands. You know what I mean? Compared to you drive 4 or 5 hours for here north, you're practically in the top of Scotland. Okay, but when you go west, which is a lot shorter distance, you find you're like, Jesus, you can't get anywhere quickly. You know what I mean? And like you said, you wish you could go to these places, but they're so hard to get to, man. You have to get ferries. You have to it's only, I think they've got a bridge to Skye, so I think I'll be going to Skye again.
Yeah.
You can just go right over in the car to Skye. But all these other wee islands here, man, you have to get little boats and all that shit, man. It's a pain in the arse. But the ferry services are quite good, actually. I've got to say they're really good. The ferry services.
Oh yeah, I know. Yeah, I've been to some of these places. Like I was at Mull and Iona years ago. I got the ferry over to the Orkneys and also to the Shetland Islands before. Yeah, what you say is true. They are really good. Yeah.
Next time.
So they were getting back to Alexander the Great finally after that hour-long detour. But that's all right. I enjoyed the discussion. So the shift of the capital of Macedonia. In fact, I read the last time. Do you want to read this one?
All right. The shift of the capital of Macedonia. So this has been the capital shifted. Is it? Is this what it means? When it moved place?
Yeah.
Right, anyway, these are not conjectural sites, but all related to Britain, not one hailed from the east. And when we come to consider the original situation of Macedonia, is it not what we should expect? What interest would the Celtic and Iberian tribes in the north of Europe have had in a king proposing to make his capital at the other end of the world? Or the Bruti? Or in fact, any of them? The explanation comes from the original situation of Macedonia itself. These mainly North British tribes or clans, apart from those in Erin, were naturally anxious to know how their frontiers might be affected by this intended great shift of the capital of Macedonia.
So my reading there is, again, it's not really worded that well. It's not phrased particularly greatly here. You kind of have to read it a couple of times to kind of, what the fuck is he trying to say? But I think what Beaumont is trying to say here is that according to the official version of history, it was a massive shift in capital from the capital of Macedonia to Babylon, right in the middle of what is now Iraq, that whole area in the desert. But if you follow his version, Beaumont's version, the capital of the Macedonian Empire is just moving from Inverness to York. So it's not halfway across, the Middle East. It's just down the road in Britain. Is what he's getting at here. So these tribes are all worried about they're going to shift the capital from Inverness to Babylon or York, and it's not really that big it's not that big a shift according to Beaumont's version compared to the official version. So he's mocking the official version. That was my reading into it. What's your reading?
I didn't really take much for that one, man, apart from Aye.
Yeah, but he's still saying though that I think these northern British tribes are no wanting the capital to move from the north, the Scottish Highland area, down further south. They're not too happy about it, but it's not as radical a shift. On the other hand, as the official version of history. So, if you look here, there's the map. There's Inverness, which is Macedonia, according to Beaumont's, and the whole Macedonian area is basically Inverness to Perth, that whole area there in the northeast. And going back to what we were saying in the last part one, if Alexander's moving down to Babylon, which is York, according to him, he would have to go right out of his way to not go through Jerusalem, which was Edinburgh. And again, that ties back to something that was in part one, that according to the official version of events, the distances were a lot further apart. The distance from Inverness to Babylon or York is 350 miles. It's not 1,450 miles, as we saw in part one. So it's a much, much shorter distance geographically. Going back to what you were saying about Beaumont compressing everything into the British Isles.
Yep.
So the victorious king. So this is all the tribes who were paying homage to Alexander. They also naturally desired to enter into treaties with the victorious king, who was transferring his ruling city from Chaldea or Chaladon, which sounds a lot like Caledonia, to the Chaldea in the very south of Yorkshire, over 350 miles distant. And as we saw on the previous map, it's about 355 miles. Also, we should not overlook their anxiety in regards to the king's character. His father Philip, who had paved the way for his son's crushing victories by his unconquerable army, small in numbers but perfectly trained and equipped, was for all his military genius a cruel tyrant, and kept all the Greek states in vassalage or fear. Was there a risk of Alexander doing the same? He was generous, impulsive, but disposed to intoxication, meaning he was a pisshead, and murderous passions, during which he had killed several of his nearest friends. So there's that worry amongst all these groups that he's going to turn out like his father. The apple's not going to fall that far from the tree, because they remember what Philip was like. And now that he's moving the capital from what is now Inverness to Babylon, they're just even looking at that as like, you know, what's he up to here? Because everything he does is under scrutiny because of his father, and they're thinking that he's acting a bit like him, kind of thing. They're a bit worried about it. What are your thoughts?
Did you finish? Did you finish the whole?
Huh?
Generous, impulsive, but disposed, and which had killed several of his nearest friends. Ah, you did. Sorry, mate.
That's right.
It's this Caledon. Where's that?
Caledon, or Chaldea, Caledon. That's kind of the northern areas, like Inverness, like Chaldea.
No, is that a real place though? Is it?
Oh, right. You mean in real history?
In real history,
In the official version?
Aye.
Aye.
Where is
I'm sure it is.
Caledon?
Caledon sounds like Caledonia. It's this whole northern bit. But if you mean where's Chaldea in real life,
No,
I
Caledon.
I
know where Chaldea is. That was in Mesopotamia, sort of.
Yeah.
It was near Ur. That's where
Yeah.
Chaldea was, near Ur. It was like Babylonian sort of area. But Caledon, where was that?
I don't know. So if I'm reading it here, his ruling city from Chaldea or Caledon to the Chaldea in the very south of Yorkshire.
What does he mean by that? Is that two Chaldeas then?
Yeah, because if I
So you've
remember
gone from
rightly,
one Chaldea to another Chaldea.
well, if I remember rightly from the previous volume in Britain, the Key to World History, when he talks about York, the whole chapter is about York, and there's several of them, and also in the Great Deception as well, he talks about Chaldea. The power of Chaldea went from Scotland down to that kind of northern area, like York, that area, because the Sea of York was tied into the north at one time. Like the power of the whole northern area extended down into the north of England. So that whole kind of Chaldean area went down into York, but never really went beyond York. So there was a lot of competition during the reign of King David I, for example, of Scotland. I think there was a lot of competition between him and King Stephen of England over like the diocese of York, sort of thing, like whether it falls under like the Scottish Church or the English Church. And there was like this push and pull between Scotland and England for a long time over like possession of York. And I think what Beaumont is saying is like it goes way further back than that. It goes back to the time of Alexander. But yeah, like York, had connections with Scotland and that whole northern area because the people of Yorkshire had like more in common with the north, with like Scotland and the other northern English areas than they did with London and the southern English. So I think that's what he's referring to.
Right, man.
Anything else about?
You read that one, the Victoria's King.
Aye. Okay, so the murders of Cletus and Callisthenes. So that ties back to this whole thing about his character being a bit on the turn, the intoxication and murderous passions. So these were two of the victims of his insecurity and his anger. Now it's quite interesting. Cletus, also known as Cletus the Black, he was one of the leading officers with Alexander, and he actually saved his life in one of the battles, the Battle of Granicus, and he was made a satrap, I think it's called, of an area of Bactria. He was going to be put in charge of the Bactrian province, which was like Turkestan today, according to Beaumont, or Afghanistan, according to mainstream history. And Cletus the Black was one of the old guards who was with Philip II, and he was like one of the last few remaining of Philip II's generation. And he was calling out Alexander on a lot of the shit that he was doing. Like he was saying, you're replacing the Macedonians with the Persians, who are barbarians who we conquered and all this kind of thing. That's the whole attitude amongst the officer class, and what you're doing isn't right and all this. And you're saying you're better than your father, but you'd be nothing without your father. And it was a big drunken argument because they're all pissed. They're all really, really drunk. And what actually ended up happening was Alexander threw a spear at him and chucked it right through his chest. And afterwards he realized, oh, what the fuck have I done? Because like Cletus the Black was one of his top guys, and he's just killed like one of his best friends over a drunken argument. So that's what is meaning in the previous text when it said he was prone to murderous passion and intoxication. In other words, you get really drunk and then, somebody would mouth off at him and he'd fucking kill them. Probably not the only time that happened. And Callisthenes is another example. It was a philosopher who kind of, when Alexander was getting wrapped up in all the Persian pomp and all this sort of thing of what they call how do you pronounce it? Proskinesis, which means like to prostrate before like a ruler. The Persians did that all the time, but the Macedonians, like it was all like the first among equals kind of thing was the idea. So when Alexander was asking the Macedonians to bow before him, they're like, no, that's their custom. That's not our custom. And Callisthenes was really calling him out on his shit here, and he ended up getting killed as well. There's more about it on in this next slide. So I think this is yours
right.
to go through.
A mad genius. The Book of Maccabees throws a light on how he was regarded later. The land was silenced before him, and he was exalted, and his heart was lifted up, and he gathered together a very mighty army and ruled over the lands and principalities, and they became tributary unto him. Is that First Maccabees or is that I Maccabee?
First Maccabees 1, yeah.
All right, it's just the one and the I. All right, I first. I. 3 to 4. Exalted, the editors of the Cambridge Maccabees analysed the word. He had a psychological problem. Was he a mad genius? Alexander seems to have become intoxicated by his success. He appears to have even had a fatuous notion that he was divine. At all events, he encouraged the spread of a report that Jupiter Ammon had called him his son and granted him the distinction of being the conqueror of the world. In accordance with this truly exalted conception of himself, he exacted divine honours.
So this is exactly what I was saying. His head it's all going to his head. He's drinking way too much. His paranoia is getting to him. his officers and his closest friends are beginning to call him out on his shit, basically saying, "You're going off the fucking deep end, Alex. Rein yourself in a bit. This is all going way too much into your head." And it continues.
But the
Sorry, go ahead.
European monarchs, the European monarchs, kind of done the same stuff. That was the right to the right to rule. What was it? They were granted by God to rule over you.
Yeah, the divine right of kings.
The divine right of kings. Sorry, I totally forgot. But
That's
the
okay.
divine right of kings. But that's just the same idea, because
Yeah.
they think they're the chosen. They think they're got this divine right to rule over you, and divine means they've been granted this gift from God to rule over you. Like, what the fuck? This is what the Europeans think. This is what the monarchs. This is what the Queen. This is what King Charles. This is what they all swear to in the divine right of kings. Anyway.
Yeah. No, you're absolutely right.
And Maccabee, by the way, is just means son of Abe, son of Abraham. Abe.
Yep, and this
Abe.
ties exactly back into what Beaumont was saying the whole time. The presentations I was doing today about Cirencester and Damascus and all this, and Antioch, going into Abraham coming from Ur the Chaldees, which was up in the Shetlands and the Orkney Islands, up that northern area. The Maccabees, the son of Abraham, being sounding very Scottish. And what Beaumont is saying is Abraham came from Scotland, came from the north, and the whole Jewish people in the Bible came from the north as well.
But how can they say that they came from the north, Scotland, blah, 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 and then say that Alexander was Macedonian and came from North Scotland? So what is it? So is Abraham a Macedonian then?
Now, what he's saying, what Beaumont, I think, fundamentally was driving at, the underscore to all his work, is all these things that we think are different are not different.
No, mate, I think a lot of these characters probably came from Western Europe and Britain, but he likes to stack them. He likes to stack them, and then this is where it gets convoluted, because you can't have these characters in the same places or in the same times and different countries, but they're in the same place. I don't know, mate. I wish you'd stop. I wish you'd spread it out a bit. Just spread it out a wee bit, mate. It's like when you're building a piece of furniture. You like to get all the bags, the screws out. You get all the wee nuts out, and you sort of, well, this is what I do. I sort of arrange them into little piles. I'm like, right, I've got that pile there, the screws. I've got that there. And then I read the instructions. I can sort it through my mind and get like, and this is how I get the finished product. I've got to build back furniture then. But it seems to be with Beaumont that you get this bag and it's just an assortment of bits, bolts, fucking things you didn't need. Fucking, it's like, well, and by the end of the day, you've not got a bit of furniture. You've got something with one leg, half a drawer. And it's just hard to construct. My point is, it's hard to construct theories into a solid thing.
Yeah, I know. It's a mess.
It seems to be all over the place. I just find it really hard.
I get what you mean, but like when you read about Alexandria, for example, the city of Alexandria, you got the Greeks mixing with the Jews, and they did get along famously. But I was thinking to myself, like, the Greeks are, when I'm reading this like years ago, the Greeks are over here, the Jews are way over here, on the map. Why are they mixing in the first place? If they don't like each other, they don't have to intermingle, and yet they seem to be kind of all crushed together like a jar of sardines, and they keep seeming to come together and they don't like each other. I'm thinking, well, if the Greeks are in this country over here and the Jews are 500 miles over that way, they don't have to have anything to do with each other. But then when Beaumont comes along and says, actually, the Jews were over in this area and it was about 50 miles away from Greece over there, makes more sense. It's like, they were kind of forced together because they're all living in this tiny little island. Whereas the mainstream version makes it like no sense. I mean, the Greeks have their Hellenic religion, the Jews have their monotheistic religion, and all this sort of thing. And according to the mainstream version, like I say, the mainstream map, the mainstream topography, if they don't want to have anything to do with each other, then fucking don't. Why are you coming together in the first place? But then you read Beaumont and they're all mixed together like that, and they don't have a choice. Like, oh, well, actually, it does make sense now. But, maybe that was just my own interpretation.
10p mixture. Anyway.
Okay. What, you mean like a pick and mix? Well, all these groups, yeah. So
Right,
Alexander the Divine, the coin there on the right-hand side is him, I think is like the Pharaoh kind of thing, the Pharaoh of Egypt. And what you see there on the left-hand side was from Assassin's Creed, what was it? Origins, I think, in ancient Egypt. And they've got the tomb of Alexander the Great, which has never been found in real life, by the way. They've never found it. Well, of course they never found it, but if you believe Beaumont's version, they're looking in the wrong fucking place. It's no wonder they can't fucking well find it. But the whole idea that he was a living god and all the rest of it, and later on Caesar and all this visited his tomb and worshipped him as a god. By the age of 30, he's done more than I've done at the age of 50, and all this kind of thing, and all his accomplishments. The whole idea that Alexander was this divine being and all this sort of thing. It's pretty interesting because a lot of his officers and all this, according to the mainstream version of events, they all viewed him as this divine being, and not the least of all because he died so young. He was only 33.
Aye. But like I said, it's who else died at 33? Who was divine? Who was seen as the king, the Lord?
Yeah.
Jesus, you know what I mean? He died at 33, and he was seen as divine, but a king of the kind of almost like the king of the Jews kind of thing. Like this whole divine stuff. It's no uncommon. It's no unusual for especially rulers to take that position because they can't be seen as just mere mortals. They have to be seen as something even higher. The connection between God and humanity kind of thing. You have that middle.
Yeah. Middle ground, yeah.
Middle ground, aye. So, anyway, man. Next slide.
Well, just something I want to throw out there before we go on to the next one. Divine, I often think about that word. Divine, to my mind, it means of the vine. And what I mean by that is of like a tree. And when I mean tree, I mean like a family tree. So when it says divine, it means of the line or of the family tree or of the blood. Because when you think of divine or the vine is wine. And
But
the
what
wine
about division?
is symbolic of blood.
What division? Like divide, divine. So it could be a division of people and gods, kind of like the division between the earth and the immortality and the mortal realm. I don't know again, but it could the div kind of divine. It could be kind of like divide. Need to look at what div is in the Greek language. Can div kind of have a source, it'll have a root. I like doing that as well. I like looking at the etymology.
Going into the roots, yeah, absolutely. I mean, that was just a thought that I've had a few times. Like divine means of the line or of the vineyard or of the blood. That was I don't know, just something that I came up with. But anyway, whose turn is it? I can't remember. Is it mine or yours?
I think it might be me.
Okay.
Right. Not only from the Persians, but from the Macedonians as well, and even ordered the philosopher. Is that continued for? What was the last slide? It feels like that's just continued for.
It's continued from this conception of himself. He exalted divine honors.
Aye. So I read that. Actually, it's your turn. I read that.
Okay.
My genius.
Okay, so the living deity. So not only from the Persians, but from the Macedonians as well. This meaning he wants the proskinesis. I've written it down on the side there. That's why I keep looking. And even ordered the philosopher Callisthenes to be put to death for refusing to prostrate himself before him. The character of Alexander the Great presents something of the nature of a psychological puzzle. There was evidently a process of degeneration which became more rapid as the years went on. And Alexander had coins minted showing his features relating to the god Hermes or Ammon. By the way, get into this big time when we get to Odin's Thunder presentation. The whole Hermes-Ammon connection, that'll come back around later on. But anyway, the most vital deity of the Britons or Macedonians for this particular argument, superior in some respects even to Apollo, as Homer recognized, because he was the living deity in the person, in the person of the archdruid or archhierarch who spoke as the Vox Day to the entire Celtic world. So what you were saying before about like the Greeks and the Jews and all these different groups all squashed together in the tiny isle. So we've also got the Celts in there with the Jews and the Greeks as well, according to Beaumont. We're all mixed in, and we're not as divided as we think. We're not spread out over this vast area over in the Middle East. We're just like subdivisions of the one group, it seems like.
So he's had coins made to make him look more like a Greek god. Take it.
Yeah. Do you notice the kind of horns on the side there of the coin?
Aye.
You know that's a Jewish thing, isn't it? The ram's horn is very symbolic.
Or do you know what? It could be the jaw of a
Yeah.
lion. See the teeth at the top. See the top?
Yeah.
It's like teeth in there.
Oh, you're right.
A
You're
jaw could
right.
be going around his ear. Can remember he wore like a lion sort of. Well, I think it was meant to be like a lion type helmet.
Yeah, that's
That
right.
could be like the jaw, like wrapping around his sort of head.
You're right.
I just think it's a bit worn down because you can almost see the eye of the lion as well at the top.
Yeah,
Top.
that's exactly it. And also the coin on the right hand side as well, trying to make him look a bit like Zeus. You know, because I think the eagle was a symbol of Zeus. Like the divine eagle kind of thing was kind of symbolic. It's sitting like he's kind of posed like Zeus on the coin on the right hand side with like the one hand down and the one hand up, like a staff, like the rod of rulership and judgment and all this kind of thing. But yeah, he's got kind of like the Macedonian kind of helmet on, but it looks like the lion's head on the left. Yep, absolutely. And the whole idea of an archdruid or an arch hierarch that goes back to Caesar as well. He tried to do the same thing. He tried to become the Pontiff Maximus.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people don't realize Caesar was actually the Pope in his day, and he was just, what was he doing there? Copying Alexander. He was just doing the same thing. Putting the purple on because the purple is symbolic of royalty. By the way, there is a theory that the solar god that's worshipped by a lot of religions, or pretty much them all, is not the sun Helios that we think of, the sun in the sky. The sun that they really worship is Sirius. And Sirius is a blue and a red star. And when you combine them, you get purple. So the purple represents the combination of the two stars of Sirius. But I'm just throwing that out there.
Cool.
Next slide.
Mm-hmm.
I think this is the last one, actually.
Regal claims to divinity.
Mm-hmm.
If Nebuchadnezzar, as head of the Chaldeans, had been so ordained, it seems extremely probable that Alexander was accorded such divinity in his turn, for regal claims to divinity were not uncommon. He would in such circumstances be justified in expecting Callisthenes to prostrate himself as did others. Alexander, who had utterly destroyed the Asiatic Persian tyranny, which had enslaved the West for so long, deserved deification if any monarch did from his own people, the Chaldeans.
So we can see here on the image here on the right, somebody performing the proskinesis, which is prostrating yourself, taken from a Persian tablet.
So just killing feet and shit, just like bending over.
Yeah, just bowing down to somebody completely.
I've got something to show you since we're on this slide, right? I've got something to show you, mate. I dug it at the cupboard, especially for this slide. Because hear me, I do actually look at your slides before I come on. I have a quick read and I think, and quickly think of something I might be able to like add. But I've got a prop. I've been keeping it especially for like this kind of situation. You might want to present me.
Okay, hang on. I'll come out of this. Let's remember how you do it again. Hang on. I'll. There we are.
See that?
Yep.
So that
looks like.
That's apparently Darius the Great.
Uh-huh.
See the guy in the middle sitting on the throne.
Yep.
That's Darius. I'm pushing my laptop camera to its limits here, but there's Darius there, and then you've got the angels beside him. See those sort of like angels. They've got spears and shit. You've got a sheet down there. You've got like a boar's head underneath his throne or something like a boar.
Yeah.
Here, mate. This is, and see the Zoroastrian. And this is the Persians weren't. That's the cool thing about these old Persians, man. They weren't Islamic. They were Zoroastrian, so they could still use it. You could still make images. And it wasn't blasphemous or idolatry to use imagery.
Mm-hmm.
So this is either Darius. I can't remember if it's Darius or if it's Cyrus. But this is metal that's been hammered. Look at the detail, mate. Look
It's
at
amazing.
Look at his pajamas. Look at that.
Pajamas. There's robes.
And then you've got the pine cone up there, man. Look, there's a pine cone.
Yeah.
And you've got the mate, and it's so well done, mate. It's unbelievable.
Where did you get that from?
Detail, right? Well, as you may know, I'm a removal man.
Yeah.
And I was doing a removal for an Iranian guy. He's an old Iranian retired doctor. He's an old doctor.
Okay. Yeah.
And I seen it. I was like, wow. I says, who's that? Is that Cyrus or is that Darius the Great? Right?
Mm-hmm.
I can't believe you knew that. I says, what? He says, you're right. I can't remember if he said Darius or Cyrus, but we went, that is that. He says, would you like it? I said, oh, I'll have it. He went, well, it's yours. It's yours. I went, oh my God, thanks very much. And obviously I came home and my missus like, what the hell's that? Get that to fuck. I'm like, nah, I'm keeping it. Oh. It's mine. It's mine. But look at it, mate. It's huge. It's pretty heavy.
Why would you want to get rid of that? Honestly.
But it's a big Persian plate, mate. And it's
awesome.
And it's been hammered, and it's been done by hammering and little. But the edging on it is amazing, mate. Like the detail, even on the really outside edge, like that, it's unreal. I love this, man. I love this. This is my old relic. This is my Persian relic, man. I've got loads of relics of different things, but this is one of my favourites, man. It's a beauty.
That is amazing. That is amazing craftsmanship and work, I'll tell you.
It is.
I would be like, no, I'm not getting fucking rid of that.
Unbelievable. Even the guys like no pajamas, but gowns, but you can see it. Some of them got tiny little cherries on them, and it just blows me away, man. It blows me away. But I can't believe the guy gave me. I was like, no way.
Oh, yeah.
And I don't know how much it's if you were trying to punt something at an auction or whatever, how much something like that would fetch for. I mean, but I don't even know the time period. If it's 20-year-old, 100-year-old, 200-year-old, I don't even know, mate.
I would stick that up in a place of prominence if that was mine, I'll tell you. Because that's really well done.
Oh, yeah, it is. It's a beauty. That's a back of it. But
hang on. I'll go to the solo layout so we can see it better.
It's not really much to see. You can just see sort of negative imprint of the. But it's genuine, solid. It's not one of these it's not one of these tourist ones that.
Wow.
And it's not one of the touristy ones that they bash out 5 every fucking 10 seconds. That's a proper one, mate.
Oh, I know what you mean, man. That was pretty amazing, I'll tell you.
Aye. I'm lucky. That's why I'm lucky with my job because I get so much stuff that people are throwing away. Or I've got a what do you call them? Bang & Olufsen hi-fi there that I got. And here you've probably never heard of Bang & Olufsen because only rich people buy them. It's like the fucking top hi-fi system in the world. Like they're made in Denmark, and it's like it's very high-end stuff. You know what I mean? And I got one for nothing, for free. The guy was like, "I'm getting rid of it. You want it?" I'm like, "Aye, I'll take that."
Benefits of being a removal man.
Thank you.
You never know what you're going to come across. Yeah.
No, I know. I've got loads of little bits and bobs, little coins and little trinkets and little this and that I found over the years. And I just
Yeah.
hide them away from my missus because my missus just chucks shit in the bin. She's like, "Hey, what the fuck's this crap?" Puts them
Uh,
puts it in the bin. She hates clutter. She's like the opposite of me. Like
yeah.
she is minimalist. She'll not even have a picture really hanging up. You probably notice her no pictures really hanging up. Like just collects dust. Ornaments collect dust.
Yeah.
So she's quite a minimalist that way, and I like my little trinkets and little objects. I like to stare at things. Yeah. I can stare at a
I'm.
coin for like half an hour.
Oh yeah. I'm like that as well. I'm like that. My aunt's like that as well. Hoarders. Me and my aunt
Mm.
were big time hoarders. You know, we didn't throw anything out if we can possibly help it. We just keep a hold of everything. Um, but yeah,
But it got me thinking too. Like this plate, Ken. This guy was Iranian.
yeah.
That's his culture. He's obviously pretty proud of it because he's bought that plate at some point. Again, thinking like this represents my
Well,
culture or whatever. And then you've got Bowman's coming along just shitting on it. You know what I mean? And it's kind of just throwing it in the
he's
air.
shitting on it. How was he
He,
shitting on it?
because well, what was he saying about fucking? Who was it that ran away? What Persian king was it that ran away and left his
Oh, but that's
wife?
accepted in mainstream history as well. Beaumont doesn't just make that up. That is what was said about Darius,
I
that
know,
he
but
just
my point
ran
is,
away.
he was having a jab at you. Like he was, it was a definite bias against the Persians. Like, oh, the barbarian Persians. Well, Alexander came along and civilized everyone.
Well, I have said multiple times that Beaumont was a bit of a racist. I mean, that is on record. You know, I have said that
But
multiple
like I
times.
said, like you think
You
back to
know?
these people, Ken.
Yeah,
These people have came from different countries, Ken.
yeah,
They've lived in these so-called areas like Mesopotamia, Iran, or whatever.
yeah.
And their culture, they speak the languages, and it's interesting actually looking at Cyrus. He's where he's get his name. His name comes from. It's like Indo-Aryan.
Yeah.
It comes to like Kuros or something like that. It's
Well, I will say one thing. If I was Persian or Iranian and I was watching these presentations, I would be absolutely fuming. You know, at what Beaumont is saying, that, you know, nothing happens, you know, in Persia, and it was all going around it, around the other side of it. I wouldn't be too happy about that at all. And the point of these videos is not to offend people, by the way. You know, the point of this is, you know, to have a discussion and do a bit of alternative history research. You know, we're not setting out to piss people off, but I do recognize the fact that we might
but
at the same time. You
Bowman
know,
paints this picture of Western Europe being this
yeah,
big hive, all these fucking empires happening, and the rest of the
yeah,
world just seems to be a barren wasteland, a knuckle draggers like that need civilized. And again,
yeah,
like what's happening with the rest of the world here?
yeah.
We know
I
there's
know.
more of the world
Nothing.
out there. So what's like if he's saying all this is happening here, what's
Yeah,
happening everywhere else? What's
yeah,
happening in the real places? What's happening in Greece? What's happening in the places that he in the Middle East? What is there then if he's saying everything's over in Britain? Like what's going on everywhere else? Like what's his alternative? And is it just
yeah. I know, that's the thing. That's the tricky part with Beaumont as well. But when we get into like other writers later on down the line, I'm just kind of beginning with Beaumont because it's kind of a good place to begin in a sense, because it's very kind of basic kind of thing,
mhm,
and it doesn't go into a whole lot of depth in terms of research and all that. But Beaumont is also the key to opening up other authors like L.A. Waddell, like
yeah?
Ignatius Donnelly, Connor McDarry. You know, you covered
I've read quite a few of their books on my channel.
Anna Wilkes.
I think I've
Yeah,
read Conor McDerry as well.
yeah. Oh,
Was
yeah, I
it
think I remember that.
the Ireland Land of Ur? Was that one?
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
and also Barry Dunford, The Holy Land of Scotland. I cannot wait to get to that one. That is an amazing book. You know, David Icke, who I consider to be in many ways a far superior author than Commons Beaumont. You know, but you know, these alternative histories, I think it is important to go into them, but at the same time, it's also important to question them, because, as you say, it is massively oversimplified when it comes to Beaumont, you know, and there's a lot of his own personal bias and prejudice involved. That is absolutely true. I can't argue that point because it's correct. But you know what you're saying about you know, warning, by the way, of those who are watching this, when we get into future presentations with Beaumont, if you're easily offended, don't watch them. Don't watch them. Stay clear of them. Stick to Mars, Atlantis, and the Hollow Earth. Do not watch any of the further Beaumont presentations if this offends you. You know, just a word of warning, because, you know, I don't set out to offend people, but I do recognize that it can and probably will happen. but this is all about going into alternative theories as well. Because when we get into Odin's thunder, boy, is that going to piss people off. Talk about kicking the hornet's nest there. You read Britain, the Key to World History years ago. You probably know where I'm going with this. With Zoroaster, who's also a number of other potential holy figures in different faiths.
Yeah.
You know where I'm going down with that road. This is what I was saying earlier on when I emailed you earlier on in today. Like I say, it's like you have to build up to it. And I think by kind of going the long way around, like going into like the Syria, Antioch thing, the Edinburgh, Jerusalem thing, the London, the Cirencester, Damascus route, you're slowly building up to it. It's not just straight in, so it looks completely nuts. You're building up to it gradually. I think that's the more developed way to go. But yeah, so I've got one more presentation on Alexander the Great, and it's to do with the coins being the proof of the Macedonians being British. I don't know if you want in on that, or do you want me to just do that one separately?
You could do that. I think it's just a short one.
It's fairly short. We'll get through it probably a lot quicker than this one.
It's up to yourself, mate, if you think I could add anything to it, but...
Well, you always add things to it. What I'll do is I'll send it to you, and I'll let you decide whether you want to come in on it or not. I would absolutely love for you to be involved in it, because I always love it when you come on the channel, because you offer something new and something fresh, and an alternative perspective. I don't like to just monologue and just say this is this is that. It's always great to have another opinion to bounce off, because you don't want to just be monologue, and that grows rather tedious rather quickly. But there is one more part to the Alexander the Great, to round it off, and that's the rest of the chapter in The Great Deception. It talks about the coins being like the proof of the Macedonians being from Britain and being from Scotland and all the rest of it.
So is the coins part of this series?
Yeah.
Aye, so I'll do it, man. I've done the first two, so I might as well finish it off.
Yeah, sure. So I don't know when you want to do that. Maybe a couple of days' time.
What is it? Wednesday? Maybe the weekend, Friday, Saturday, something like that.
Oh, sure, that's fine by me.
It's Thursday already, so it's only a few days away. Saturday or Saturday night, something like that. Saturday night.
No bother, mate.
Right.
Sounds good.
Good stuff. Right, man. It's been a pleasure. All right, that's been a pleasure, man.
That's a pleasure having you, mate.
See you in the next podcast. See you later, mate. Cheers.
No bother. Take care. Cheers.